Hello, people, and in a shocking twist, despite all the good momentum, it seems that the USA has sold 80% of its Bitcoin stash. And what's more so, it seems like this is very recent. So it looks like they might have started selling in the Biden administration and continued to sell in the Trump administration. Now, some of you are wondering, but don't we have a Crypto Reserve Act? Yes, but it has not actually been implemented. So they might be continuing to sell Bitcoin in order to make the budget look better. You know, we had a budget surplus of about 20 something billion in June for the first time in like 20 years. And they might have actually sold part of that stash to do it. Now, Bitcoin has been going sideways up until recently for several months, and this might actually be a big part of the reason why we haven't actually been going up the last couple of months. Because remember, us as the US, we were supposed to have something like 200,000 Bitcoins, but we only have about 30,000 Bitcoins left. So that's minus 170,000 Bitcoins. Even if sold over the course of a few months, that could counter major buys like Michael Saylor. So the report comes directly from the US Marshals, and it reveals that the US government had sold 80% of its Bitcoin secretly in the recent past. Of course, senators like Cynthia Lummis are not happy about this and say it has set the US back a full year or possibly many years on its Bitcoin reserve. So the United States government ostensibly holds 28,988 Bitcoin, down from 200,000 units from the previously presumed reserves of around 200K Bitcoins. Now, the reserve can be sold in terms of national emergency, but I haven't really seen a national emergency anytime, so I don't really know what they're doing now, but it seems like they've sold Bitcoin for whatever reason. According to the report from the U.S. Marshals Service, the government has silently offloaded its Bitcoin stash without leaving an on-chain footprint for the public to consider. Now, I'm not really sure how it offloaded its Bitcoin stash without leaving an on-chain footprint, unless it just sold the address somehow or other. I do remember when Trump assumed office, we had about 200,000 left. The move has prompted huge criticism from pro-Bitcoin regulators led by Senator Cynthia Lummis, who championed the Donald Trump administration to implement a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Now, that act has been passed, but it has not actually been implemented. According to Lummis, if the U.S. Marshal has sold the Bitcoin stash, the country has been set back a year in the Bitcoin race. Now, here's the thing. The U.S. Marshal has reported it. Some people are saying like it hasn't actually been sold and it's actually been kept by other agencies. But we can't really confirm that. And I just find it really, really weird that it offloaded its Bitcoin stash without an on-chain footprint, because there definitely should be an on-chain footprint. So the thing is, yes, the government has sold Bitcoin before, but not quite to this degree. We've been slowly selling off the Silk Road holdings ever since we actually got them like 10 years ago. But it seems like we unloaded all of them in a very short amount of time, which could actually explain why we've been going sideways for so long. And maybe we're going up now because the stash finally ran out. I wonder if it's a coincidence that this came out like a week after we started going up. It would make sense that if the US basically ran out of coins to sell and then we finally went up, the selling pressure's gone, buying pressure's still there, so we actually went up. So, we're at 119,000. We've been here for a while. The Bitcoin dominance, however, has actually gone down to 62.1. Now, that's a pretty significant move because that's basically going down by 2 points within the span of a week. We've been slowly edging up on Bitcoin dominance, and we've gone down a little bit. This also happened to a greater degree in November, December, so we could be looking at that kind of move. Still not quite looking at the 2017 down here, or the 2017, 2018 down, or even the 2021 down, not even anything close to that. You can see from this graph, we came from a high of 67 all the way down to a low of 44. We essentially basically came at a high of 63.8 or 64.1 or 64.9 actually. And now we're at 62.1. Very, very similar to November, December, where we were at a high of 59.3 and then we went to 58. Now, we're still higher now than where we were back in November, December, but we basically shut out the last maybe 2 months of Bitcoin dominance gains, and such a big move in a small amount of time may signal that season is on the way. We're still pretty far away from alt season. As you can see, altcoins have not reached their last all-time highs, but some of them have actually soared. You look at Ethereum. I think Ethereum is kind of becoming the index for altcoins because it's actually up the most at 8.43. You see XRP being up at 4.49. Like Sol being up 5.19, Cardano being up 2.14, Dogecoin being up 7, Sheep being up 6. Bonk has essentially gone absolutely crazy at 28. Floki's up like 40. And meme coins completely sprouting off is like one of the early signs that the crypto alt season is here because they're the ones to actually react first. Now, Bonk being up like something like 30, Floki being up 40. Those are very, very strong signals. We'll have to keep them going for a couple of days before we can actually confirm alt season. And if you actually look at the Bitcoin dominance graph, it is still a little too early to actually celebrate because if you've actually looked at this graph, you'll realize like how much we've actually gone up since just even November, December. Like even like before the pump in November of last year after the election, we were only up at 59. We're still at 62 after the so-called drop. It would have to drop 3% more just to equal out the 59 from last year. So we're in quite a doozy and we need more big drops. If we want to go back to where we were after the big drop, we'd have to be at like 58, 57, and that's another 4% drop. Now, if it suddenly drops without going back up from 58 to 57, I'm pretty much ready to call it an alt season. But remember, like even in the depths of the so-called bear market, the Bitcoin dominance back in December of 22, when FTX fell apart, was only 38.7. And, it slowly came up. Even in September of 23, before we got the big up from the ETF, it was only basically 49.1. So we got a long time to go. And hopefully we can actually reduce that dominance by that amount. It's about time that we actually do so. Ethereum dominance up at 10.9. That's a very good signal. Ethereum obviously has an ETF. And having that ETF has really helped Ethereum. We're hoping that the altcoin ETFs can spur something in basically October. Yes, we got a couple of XRP futures ETFs, but we've had futures ETFs for a long time. And we are looking for that spot ETF. So that's kind of where we are right now in the ETF race. The other part that I wanted to mention is that the 3 bills did actually get revived that died earlier. And the House did actually vote to move on to them, maybe to vote on them separately and get them actually passed. They're hoping once again to do something before the August recess. The procedural vote is basically like, hey, we will actually look at the bills, but it's not like we've actually passed the bills. And of course, the Republicans are falling in line with the legislation after a couple more amendments to the CBDC. So the U.S. House of Reps has cleared the way for 3 Republican-led crypto bills to be considered in the chamber after a failed vote on Tuesday. In a Wednesday floor vote in the House, lawmakers voted 215 to 211 in favor of a resolution to reconsider a package with bills to regulate stablecoin payments, establish crypto market structure, and restrict the development of a central bank digital currency. Now, those are the Genius, Clarity, and the CBDC Act. I think they had to give some concessions on the CBDC Act for the rest of the Republicans to actually sign on. Otherwise, like there were a bunch of holdouts. Now it passed 215 to 211. But that does not mean the individual bills are passed. That just means that they're willing to reconsider it, willing to vote on the actual bills themselves, which is a step in the right direction. Though the motion to reconsider passed, the House had yet to agree to the resolution. Reports suggested lawmakers were debating how to move forward. At the time of publication, the vote remained open. Despite political pressure from U.S. President Donald Trump, 5 Republicans did not vote in favor of reconsidering the resolution. 13 House Republicans caused the vote to fail on Tuesday, several of whom expressed concerns about the lack of CBDC provisions in the stablecoin bill, the Guiding and Establishing National Innovation for U.S. Stablecoins, or GENIUS Act. Many House Democrats continue to push against all 3 bills without specific amendments to address what they are. Trump's conflict of interest. So basically, they're blocking it because they're not basically putting in the amendment that presidents, vice presidents, and Congress cannot actually be part of crypto projects themselves or endorse crypto projects themselves. I do think that specific amendment definitely needs to be added. So we've made some progress, and that could actually be the reason for today's jump. Obviously, these bills are more important to stable coins, to overall altcoins than they are to Bitcoin. So essentially, like, that's what we actually got going on right now, and that's kind of like what's hot in the crypto race right now. If you actually look at the Bitcoin charts right now on TradingView, you will actually see that one thing I'm very happy to see is that the volume is actually up. I mean, you can't see it right now. Yes, there's a big red candle, but there were some green candles afterwards. And I think the volume's essentially like up by 50% or even double of what it was a week ago. Now, that could just be kind of excitement. If you look at the MACD, it's starting to go a little bit more negative. It looked like it's actually peaked. And that's obviously not good news. But, if we can actually sustain more MACD for a while, then I think this pump actually has some legs. Obviously, we need to basically sustain the volume for a while as well. Ethereum ETFs are recording a lot of inflows right now, and that's obviously good. And it does look like Ethereum has become the index coin for alts. At least, this is how it goes. Bitcoin has to pump first, and then Ethereum has to basically gain on Bitcoin before the other alts pump. Because if Ethereum loses against Bitcoin, it does seem like all the other alts go down. So we have to start cheering for Ethereum because the rest of our alts kind of depend on it. Yes, I think Ethereum technology is trash, but that really doesn't matter because the ERC ecosystem still has way more influence than any other ecosystem does on the market right now. Yes, SPL, like BSC, they're catching up, but there's still no other ecosystem that has quite the influence that the ERC20 ecosystem does. And there's a lot of coins that get pulled up by Ethereum, and that in fact has the effect of pulling up the rest of the coins up with it. So despite what the MACD is, despite what Bitcoin's 50 and 200 MA is, the altcoins are gaining because Ethereum is gaining. So we need Bitcoin to actually hold steady, and we need Ethereum to actually gain more while Bitcoin holds steady. Because if Bitcoin starts to go down, I actually have no doubt that Ethereum will actually go down too. I'm hoping that we don't really have a drop towards the end of the week, honestly, because if we actually have a drop towards the end of the week, that means this was a false call. And I think I do think there is a very, very good chance that this is a false call. Because we don't have the other altcoin ETFs quite yet. We will get them in November or October, November, and then we need another kind of trigger to actually start pumping us back then. Once we actually have that, maybe 1 or 2 rate cuts, I think that's when we'll actually start to go up. There's a lot of these predictions for coins to go way, way up right now. I really wouldn't go for them at this point. I still think it's good to take a little bit of profit this week. Don't cash all out, but at least do a little bit of profit in order to preserve some of your gains. Otherwise, you could actually be crying once you start losing everything. So I'm just saying you should definitely kind of be careful as to what you do with your coins, and don't have this be in this euphoria that I can't lose anymore. I'm definitely going to gain at this point. So yeah, I don't think any of the utility stuff for crypto has actually changed. The crypto bills do actually help, but they're mainly for stable coins. And banks like Bank of America and others are experimenting with stable coins as well. Stable coins, once again, do make it easier to onboard Bitcoin for the mass public, but they're not they're not the instantly win card for our cryptos. And I think it'll make it easier for people to buy cryptos once they're used to Tether and USDC. But it's not a free ticket to instant winnage for your coin just because more people have Tether and USDC. So yeah, that's kind of where the news is for today. And I'm hoping that Ethereum continues to actually gain in terms of Bitcoin ratio, because that will pull the rest of the coins up with it. So that's the news for today. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe, hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.